Welcome to Unit 1, Social Finance Concepts. Conventional finance has failed to address social and environmental challenges due to its emphasis on risk-adjusted returns. Social finance, on the other hand, focuses on impact-first investments, in which a host of financial social trade-offs are considered. What is this topic about? There is a lack of scholarly literature on social finance. This paucity of scholarly work on social finance reflects that the topic has not been recognized as a distinct and legitimate field of research. According to Nichols, in its simplest terms, social finance refers to the allocation of capital for social and environmental returns, as well in some cases as financial return. Social finance challenges the conventional investor rationale with regard to value creation and appropriation. In conventional investing, the assumption is that the owner of capital will appropriate all of the value created by his or her investment. In social finance, on the other hand, the social investor allocates capital knowing from the start that some of the value created will be appropriated by someone or something else. As we can see in the graph, there is a social finance spectrum, that is, a portfolio of instruments that we will call a spectrum. This spectrum ranges from conventional finance assets of debt and equity to grants and quasi-equity. In the graph, you can see the instruments are grouped by their primary driver and their focus on returns. Thus, we have instruments focused on social and environmental returns, in which the primary driver is to create societal values such as grants and venture philanthropy. Located in the middle of this spectrum, we found blended value return instruments, such as quasi-equity and subordinated debt. At the end of the spectrum, there are instruments focused on market financial return, which driver is to create financial value. That is the case of social venture capital. Instruments oriented towards societal values, such as grants, have the advantage of being non-refundable. This is fundamental for new social ventures that do not have access to conventional banking and need startup capital. Blended instruments, on the other hand, aim to give investors a return that looks like equity returns, but don't have any of the special rights associated with owning common shares. This is the case of quasi-equity. Social venture capital is a case of impact investing, in which investors are willing to make a profit with a purpose. That is, consider a host of financial social return trade-off. Social finance market structure. Now that we know about the elements or instruments available for social finance, let me introduce you to the market structure of social finance. Such market is made of three elements: supply, intermediaries, and demand. Now we're going to analyze each of these elements. On the supply side, there are individual institutions and governments. In the first group are individual philanthropists, social investors, savers that capitalize microfinance institutions, community development finance institutions, and cooperatives and mutual members. In the second group are charitable foundations, and in some cases, corporations. In the final group are public funds and indirectly taxpayers. Intermediaries linking supply and demand in social finance encompass various sorts of private funds, microfinance institutions, credit unions, community development finance, and others. The development of the intermediary part of the social finance market has been rapid and characterized by innovation and experimentation. However, this sector is far from being fully institutionalized. The most relevant gaps are the lack of performance data aggregators and well-developed secondary markets. Finally, the demand side includes various actors such as social enterprises, charities, cooperatives, and hybrid organizations, combining elements of the state, the private sector, and the civil society sector. In this graph, there is a missing actor. I told you, the social finance market structure has three elements: supply, intermediaries, and demand. However, there is a missing actor in this graph. It is the enabling environment. The enabling environment is the context in which the market structure works. It is made of the regulatory environment and the information availability. Demand constraints. Despite the existence of a large number of organizations seeking social finance funding, the demand side appears to be the least well institutionalized aspect of the market. There are a number of reasons constraining the ability of the demand side to access social finance. First of all is scale. Most social impact organizations are only able to absorb relatively small amounts of investment due to their size. There is also the issue of life cycle of development. There are significant gaps in the funding options for social impact investment recipients across their life cycle, particularly between early-stage grants and large-scale debt or equity investments. Finally, there is an urgent need for capacity building around financial literacy among social funding recipients. They need to better understand which forms of investment best suit their needs and strategic objectives. Thank you very much for your attention. See you in the next unit.